Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Setter Tales Podcast. I'm Wade, and as you can see, my partner Thomas is back tonight,
I
and
am back.
he had a youth event that took place. How'd that go for
Went
you?
really well. The weather was perfect, a little warm. It's usually what you get in August. So had about 35 kids. We were down this year, but it seems like every year kids just keep getting busier and busier. A little bit about it. Our Pheasants Forever chapter started. We do a lot of with the youth. Always just had the youth hunt on opening day of youth season, and we thought we could do a little more. So I think this was our 15th or 16th year, and we usually have to cut it off at about 50, 55 kids. And we do it at a big campground. It's got a pond, it's got shelter houses, a perfect area out kind of on the edge of a town. And one thing about this that's kind of made it a little different and special in a kind of way is a few years back, um, one of the folks that come to our banquet regularly, and their son come to our youth stuff. He was killed playing with a gun. Him and his friends were fishing, and they were trying to shoot a fishing lure off a tree with a 22. And the one kid turned around and actually shot him in the stomach and killed him. So his parents have turned a bad situation into good. So every year they come up and just hand us money. Here's $1,000. Do what you want with
Good.
it. And they just keep wanting to step up more and more. They are part of the reason that some of the schools in the area where I live actually have hunter safety in school as a PE. You can do it. The parents can do um, they can sign them in that they can do it, and they sign it out. I think there's only a few kids that haven't done it. COVID kind of stopped it. I believe they're going to bring it back. So that youth thing is huge for us. And this year we always do BB guns, bow and arrows, and we do kayaking. And actually, we gave them away two really, really nice Old Town kayaks this year. And, uh, and then each kid goes home with something. So the last few years, we found it the best way to do it is just give them a $20 gift card to Shields so they can just go get what they want. And we have ice cream. And then this year, I had a friend of mine come down with his shed dogs, and he actually hid sheds around the park and showed the kids how that really goes. So that was really cool. The kids were engaged, and we take about a half a day. And actually, our local pizza ranch gives us a lot of money too. So he feeds the kids all pizza and doesn't charge us a thing. So we do that every year, probably first of August sometime, and
That's great.
and we keep it to the non-hunting age kids. So the kids that want to come hunting can come in the fall. This is like an 8 to 14 year old, and it's just something that we do to give back, and the kids enjoy it, and it's fun to see. Used to parents just drop the kids off, we'll see you later. Well, the parents are interested now too. So we actually had probably three-quarters of the parents that stayed.
That's good.
And we get a lot of volunteers in our group that do it, and it's just a really good thing. And I don't want to miss it. So
Yeah.
that's why I was missing out
Well,
with Ian's
you were
Ian
missed, but
stuff. And
we were able to carry on without you. But you
yeah,
certainly were at a great event up there, and something that we need to keep supporting. And sounds like the community up there does that tremendously, and so hopefully keep that going every
yeah,
year.
yep,
One of the things we've often talked about is that as we love the sport of gun dogs and wing shooting, but it's under tremendous pressure because there's so many other activities, and we're always looking for how do we get new people introduced. How do we those youth perhaps, or even adults that maybe haven't experienced
hmm,
hunting dogs, or and some that have got that dog, they've taken that step where they've got that hunting dog, but maybe they just don't have a lot of information about what to do next. And so, what we're going to talk about tonight are AKC hunt tests. And I participated in a few of those. It's been a number of years ago when we had Lou uh, and traveling around. And at one time, hunt tests, we had a place outside of Cedar Rapids where one of the local clubs held tests in the fall and in the spring. Unfortunately, they disbanded, and we don't have any of those close by tests anymore. And so now I believe to get to the closest one, you have to go to Southwest Iowa and or to over near Joliet, over at the Des Plaines State Wildlife Area over there. And I haven't been to that one, but a lot of the guys I know that do some, training and hunt tests have, and it's a great place because they will get into that with our guest tonight. But they do in the hunt test world, you hear the term double double, and we'll talk about that because when you're traveling a ways for a test, you might need to be familiar with that double double. But tonight we got Perry Dlugie, and Perry, I've met Perry down at Highland Hunting before. He is the current president of the German Shorthair Pointer Club of Illinois, and for many years they have been hosting and putting on hunt tests over there in the spring and the fall. And we're going to drill down tonight a little more about hunt tests, what they're about. If you've never heard of them, what they do, different levels of competition and this type of thing. But for somebody that's kind of wanting to get their feet wet a little bit about hunt tests or the dog training, it might be a great opportunity to go out and watch one of these, just see what they do, and then maybe try that junior event on for size. And what happened to me is I said, I can try this junior thing, and so I took my dog, and he did well and met the requirements. And at the end, I got a pass and got a nice little ribbon. And the next thing you know, man, I was hooked. Man, I got that. I can do this again. And how many passes do I need to get my junior title? And then what do you do from there? Well, now you go to the senior level, and so it becomes one of those things where it gives you an opportunity to keep working your dog to try to meet those other requirements and keep getting that high level until you get up there to a master level. And but it does take a lot of time. It does take commitment, and it does take some work. But it does do those things where it gives you motivation, I think, to train that dog more often at home to get ready for that test that's coming up. And so we're going to bring Perry in now. Perry, are you with
Yes,
us?
sir. Yep.
Hey,
Thank you,
thanks for
guys.
coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Um, like I said, you guys obviously have done this hunt test thing for many years and kind of have it down. I know there are always those factors that you can't predict, weather being one of them. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your organization and what you guys do and how the hunt tests kind of are a part of that?
Sure. Well, as you said, we're the German Shorthair Pointer Club of Illinois. We're very fortunate in that we have always been able to maintain a strong membership. So we're outside of Chicago. That helps. We're promoting the German Shorthair Pointer in Illinois. That's far and away Shorthairs and Labs are the two most popular bird dogs, and we offer a lot of activities for our members, which also helps. So hunting test, I only got into this, I got my first short hair was a rescue in 2005. So I didn't grow up hunting or anything like that. I grew up in Chicago and joined the German Short Hair Pointer Club just before their fall hunting test. They invited us to come out. My sons were little kids. Came out. We had our brand new, right out of the bag, blaze orange vest and hats. I mean, we would look so ridiculous because I joke with the guys in the club now. They had blaze brown because their vests and their hats were so old. But and we went out. I went out and watched. They ran the highest level, the master level dogs first, and the senior and junior, and I was hooked. Joe, you talked about being hooked. Was I was mesmerized watching these dogs do what they were bred to do. End of the day, we took our short, which we just got this dog as a family companion. Had no aspirations of hunting or anything else. Took him out in the field on a check cord, and he's just going back and forth. I mean, he knew exactly what to do. Uh, started working with some of the guys in the club. They helped me train him to a junior level. We got our junior title, and then there was a wall, and we could probably get into that a little bit later on. Just there is a
Yeah.
huge gap between the junior level and the senior level. But now, 17 years later, I'm on my fourth short hair. With two more legs towards his master hunter title, and I'm president president of the club. So it's been a journey.
And so maybe we for people that aren't familiar with hunt tests, maybe we need to kind of explore the levels and
Sure.
what are required, to meet each level. I mean, obviously, a junior being the first level that you would take on.
hmm So just hunting tests began in 1986, and I was told that the first years they had uh, 60, 70 entries. It was, I mean, right now, we usually most of the clubs will cut it off about 30 to 36 entries. So the hunting test is, or the levels, the junior level, you don't have to begin in juniors. Pros will usually start their dogs at the senior or master level, the higher levels. But the junior level is a fantastic way for anyone with a pointing dog to get into the sport. And so there's hunting tests for retrievers, for flushing dogs, and pointing dogs. So obviously we'll be talking about pointing dogs tonight. And the junior level is an introductory level, especially in Chicago. We'll get a lot of non-hunters that will enter and run their dogs in the junior level. So there's four requirements. It is that your dog has to hunt, and we do get some dogs, especially if they're living in the city. I'm also an AKC judge, and we'll have some handlers come to the line, and they'll say, "This is my dog's second time in the field." Okay, I'm not I'm not sure what I'm
Good
supposed to
luck.
do with that, and why would you tell me? Uh, but so the dog has to be hunting, not just going for a walk. It has to find birds. So most of the time, they're using a bird field. A bird field is a minimum. I want to say it's 5 acres. Usually, it's about 10 acres, and it's marked off with flags. And most of the clubs will put out 4 quail for each brace. So you run in a brace. You have there's two dogs running together but separately, especially in juniors. They really have nothing to do with each other. They're not scored against each other. So the dog has to find a bird. Um, then you're scored in pointing. In juniors, it's very lenient in pointing. Uh, you, it has to be, you have to be able to tell it's a point, but flash points can kind of point, can sort of count. And then the fourth category is trainability. That's the rough one with juniors. There's a lot of, no bird and, yelling no bird and, trying to get the dog back. That's my pet peeve is people will come out with the dog that is just not under control.
Yeah.
Um, so as a judge, you have to take a seminar. I think it's every 5 years. The AKC rep will come in and host a seminar. And the way he described it, I thought was perfect. He said a junior dog is a dog you can hunt with. So it will find a bird. It will hold point long enough for you to get into gun range. And with the juniors, you're carrying a blank gun. So when the bird goes up, you fire the blank gun. That's to show that the dog's not gun shy. Um, a senior dog is a dog that you would hunt with, and I'll get into more detail. But a senior dog is basically that's a dog that you can earn a living with. You can guide with a senior level dog, and a master dog is a dog that you would pay to hunt with. That is a uh, completely finished dog that should take your breath away. It should slam into a point. It's steady to wing shot and fall. But to come back, so the junior, most people, probably I would say about 80 to 85% of the handlers do not go past juniors. Unfortunately, they don't go past juniors. Sometimes you'll get handlers with show lines and they will enter a junior hunt test. You need 4 passes to get a title. So each day, the weekend is usually a Saturday and a Sunday. Those are 2 separate tests. The AK, there's 2 separate registration numbers, and you can get 2 passes with that. So we'll get a lot of people, especially again in Chicago, that have show lines, and they'll bring that dog out just to show that it can hunt. And um, you know, yes, and it'll pass, and it'll get a junior hunter title. The score. So I should talk about scoring. So I talked about the 4 categories for juniors. Scoring is from 0 to 10. So you're scored, and the judges each score the dogs separately. They'll each have their own set of scorecards. There's 2 judges for each race, and you try to watch both dogs. The dogs are not scored against each other. They're not competing. They're scored according to a standard, and it's the judge's interpretation of that standard. So in juniors, it's relatively easy. The interpretation gets a little bit trickier as you start going up to the higher levels. So those 4 categories, 1 to 10, 0 to 10, I should say, you need to have a 5 or above in each category. So a 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 would be failing. So normally you might get 4 in like trainability. So the dog just took out all the birds, or it chased the bird out of the field and they couldn't get the dog back. So we're not going to give it a 0. We'll give it a 4 in trainability. You might get a 0 in bird finding if you never found a bird. So, and then you have so 5 or above, and an average of 7 or above. So the judges, and this is for all categories, the judges first determine whether the dog passed or failed. They both have to agree, and then they'll fill in their scores. So their scores don't have to match, but as long as both of their scores average, have a 5 or above, and average 7 or above, then you could get a 7.8 or 8.4, something like that. It doesn't, that's not as important. So is that clear? Did I
Mhm. Yeah, and
explain that?
the other
Okay.
thing, and it is a timed event, correct? It's like
Correct.
30 minutes,
June
I think, from,
juniors is a minimum of 15 minutes.
okay.
So when I'm judging, depending on the test, depending on the time of year, I'll try to give them 20 minutes in the field. They'll, right now around here, tests are $50 to $55. So, I like to give people their money's worth.
Mhm.
So, minimum of 15 minutes, minimum of, I want to say it's 6 or 7 minutes in the bird field. So, there's 2 types of courses. Most of the courses are a bird field. So, there'll be a back course. So, for juniors, that back course could be about 10 minutes. With seniors and masters, you might have a 20-minute back course where you're letting the dogs, get a little bit of the excitement out, and they're still being scored in that back course, but usually the birds are all in the bird field, and that's where the real scoring happens.
Yeah, my luck was always that we encountered birds in the back course. That happened to me several times. Especially if you're in one of the later braces, for whatever reason,
Well,
or
I
you're on day
have,
2, or you're on day 2 after the event, and some of the
yep.
birds that, ended up moving off the course and into the other areas. Yeah, yeah, you're hoping your dog doesn't, hey, just act like you're hunting until we get to the bird course, but yeah, they
And
locked up
there's
someplace.
and there's a lot of hacking that, with the advanced handlers are trying to keep their dog because, they don't want their dog to make a mistake, which I see now as a judge, being a judge now has given me, as I believe, has made me a better handler. It's given me a much better perspective on it. First of all, the judges see all the nonsense, all the little games that handlers are trying to play, that the judges see them all. And I actually now I look at the back course. If I encounter a bird in the back course, with the higher levels, the birds are shot. There's gunners provided by the club. In the back course, you're just going to blank that bird. The gunner with a bird field, the gunners are waiting for you in the bird field. I look at that now as training because I figure my dog has a much better chance of not doing something ridiculous on a bird that I'm blanking rather than all the excitement of having a bird shot. So I don't avoid birds of the back course anymore. I look at that as a perfect warm up. So again, a different perspective now with being a judge. So
Gets the antsiness out of them. So when you do get to the part
exactly,
that's judged, they
exactly,
maybe you can kind of say something or just kind of give them that look like, hey, it's time now.
exactly. And
So
so in juniors, you could talk to the dog, you could whoa the dog. Um, there's really not a whole lot that you can't do. It's really kind of become almost like a natural ability. It's the scoring. I question how many, let's say there's 8 braces, so 16 junior dogs. How many of those dogs can you really hunt with? Most dogs that people are hunting with are somewhere between junior and senior. They're holding point long enough for you to get close enough to shoot the bird. They might retrieve it, they might bring it back halfway. And I've I've shared this with the AKC. I really think that there's some value with having a level between juniors and seniors, but so far I haven't had any luck with that. So moving on to seniors, same thing. The dogs are braced. There's together, 2 dogs running together. The brace is 30 to 40 minutes, minimum of 30 minutes. And I want to say it's 8 minutes 8 to 10 minutes in the bird field. I kind of review all that, obviously before the test. And now the dog is required, everything is at a higher level. So you want that dog showing some intelligence in hunting. You want to see it starting to hit objectives. You want to see it starting to use the wind to its advantage. It needs to be under control. If you call the dog around, we expect it to come around. The dog has to hold point. So hunting, you want to see a higher, more experienced, more accomplished level of hunting. Still has to find a bird. I mean, all they need is one, and that's one of the tricks. One of the little games that handlers will play. They'll get their one bird, and then they'll go take the dog off to the corner and try and hide them. I tried that with my club, and we kept hitting a bird. And I asked them about it. They said, "Oh, we knew that you were going to go to the corner, so we put some extra birds out there for you." So thank you for that. Uh, Pointing. Senior dog has to hold point through the shot. So the handler, a junior dog can, once it's established point, it could take the bird out. So it'll just get a lower score, but it'll pass. Senior dog has to hold point through the flush and the shot. It can break on the shot, which is really what most hunting dogs do.
steady to flush,
Exactly. Steady to shot.
steady to
Steady
shot.
to shot. So the dog is safe. You're not shooting over a dog that's running underneath the bird. The senior the senior dog has to, its level of trainability is higher. So and the pointing can fall under the trainability category. When you call that dog around, it has to come around. If it encounters a bird like on a wild flush, You can whoa it, you can give it a verbal whoa, but it has to stop on that wild flush. It can't chase a wild flush. So again, if you're hunting and the dog's on the wrong side of the wind and it busts a bird by accident, you might want to mark it and go back and work that bird again. So then it has two additional levels that the junior dog doesn't. There's two more categories: retrieving. A senior dog has to bring the bird back. You can coax it in, you can talk to it, you could cajole it. It has to bring it within a step or two. It does not have to bring it to hand. But again, those are all going to reflect in the score. If if that dog just picks the bird up and brings it back and it fell in heavy cover, you might give it a 9 or a 10 in retrieving. If you have to coax it in and it stops and puts the bird down and picks up, maybe it's a 5. It still completed the retrieve. It still did what it had to do, but it did it relatively poorly. The final category is honoring. That is the bane for most senior dogs. Um, you can whoa a senior dog into an honor. So an honor is when it sees the other dog on point, it stops. It honors that dog, so it stays out of the way. It does not. If it goes in and steals point, that's an automatic failure. Okay, it cannot steal point. Um, so you can whoa your senior dog into an honor, but it has to see that other dog. I'll explain to people, handlers at the line, I want to see it acknowledge that other dog. I want to see it slow down for a moment, hesitate for a moment, and then you could whoa it. We don't expect the senior dog to stop on its own. And at that point, most judges will tell the handlers, just collar your dog, hold your dog, kneel down, hold his collar. He's not under judgment anymore, but we don't want him interfering with that other dog. So, um, and that is, so those are the 6 categories for a senior dog. Most of the time, the diff is the trainability. A lot of them, it's a big jump. That a lot of people argue that a senior dog is a finished dog. That's basically most dogs that you're guiding with, especially pheasants. You may not necessarily want your dogs waiting for you to tap it on the head to go retrieve that pheasant, because it may have hit the ground and it might be 30 yards away at that
Especially in the
point.
cover we hunt.
Yep. Yeah, and I've been out by you. As you mentioned, I've been out by you guys and at Ryan's place there. Is that, yeah, the CRP? It's like,
Pheasants don't play fair, that's for sure.
They never do.
right. And it is interesting. So a master dog has to stay steady through shot and fall. It has to display steadiness until you send it. And what I found personally, and I've talked to our friend Steve Reese and other people have shared this with me, really believe that dogs know the difference. And why wouldn't they know the difference between a pheasant and a quail? And you take a dog pheasant hunting a couple times, and he's going to figure out pretty quick that, quail don't generally run after you've shot them. Pheasants very often run after you've shot them. And they, I believe, understand that they have got to get on that bird quicker. So my dog will lose all that steadiness that we worked on during the training season, lose it all in the hunting season, but fortunately can get it back relatively quickly once the hunting season's over and we get back on quail. They'll and Steve
Oh, I
Reese
think that's
told me
true.
this.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's true. I think that's what I've found too. It just seems like quail, they just understand it's a little different game.
yep,
We got different
and
rules today, and
My
and they'll
dog
get
will, my young dog will even have a different tail set on a quail.
really.
On a pheasant, she's straight up, straight as arrow. As an arrow, you can put a T square in her back, and it's going to be perfect. On a
So are
quail,
you
she's harder, and her tail actually curls.
are you using mostly pen raised quail, or do
They
you
are
get an
pen raised.
opportunity?
Yep.
That's we have some some of the older guys by me are convinced that they smell different. They're first of all, they just came out of a box. They're walking around in their droppings. A wild quail is not walking around in his droppings. And a lot of times, so for that bird field, we'll dizzy the quail normally. Normally we use quail. Out west, I think they use chucker just because they can't get quail. But
Hmm.
all the clubs in the Midwest are using pen raised quail, and we'll dizzy the birds up and put them in the cover so they'll stay towards the. And again, a dog, I believe, a dizzied bird smells different than a bird that's been a wild bird that may have been sitting there for a while. And some handlers feel that the dogs sometimes confuse a dizzied bird with an injured bird, and they'll get a little bit closer to it, or they may take the bird out. It is artificial. There's no question about that. The whole setup is artificial. Um, Gunners, the club will provide gunners for the senior and master braces. Uh, the those two gunners for each brace, you want them to split up and walk with each handler. Just a handling tip: there's no reason to stay together with that other handler. You're each working independently of each other, and you'll have one gunner go and be prepared. The gunner works for the handler, so the handler will tell the gunner where to stand. The handler will go in and flush that bird, and then hopefully the gunner will knock it down for him.
One
And
question I had for you, before I forget, when somebody wants to do one of these AKC hunt tests, does the dog? I know you said you got one from a rescue. Do they have to be AKC registered, and can you open register a dog with AKC?
great question. So they used to call it the PAL listing, or now it's an ILP. So basically, with my first dog, we were able to register him. Normally, if you were to get a purebred short hair, it would come with it would be
Hmm.
registered with the AKC. It would come with a number, with a
Hmm.
registration number. You can get indefinite. I don't even know what ILP. I'm not even sure what that stands for. But basically, you fill out a form and you say, this is, I believe this dog is a German short hair pointer, for example. Well, why? Well, because every time I take it for a walk and it encounters a bird, it stops. It starts pointing at it. And I joined the German Short Hair Pointer Club, and the one of the board members verifies, yes, this looks like a German short hair pointer to me. You send some pictures in, and you also have to send in verification that the dog has been spayed or neutered. They don't want that dog being bred. But you can get a master hunter title on a non, on a rescue, on a non-pure, hopefully it's
I didn't know
purebred,
that.
but there's no absolute proof that it was
Okay.
purebred, but you just can't breed it.
And the reason I ask that is a lot of the setters, they just go through the field dog stud book. There
Hmm.
are some lines that do have AKC papers, but every dog I've ever owned or looked at just had the field dog stud book registration. So even though they're purebred, they're just not registered through AKC, and that was always kind of thing I'd like to maybe try it someday. It's like, well, man, I
Well,
just like field dog.
that's just a form. The
Yep.
AKC has a
Yeah.
form and they'll accept that registration and give you an AKC number. So
They
you could
just
have you could
That's what
have your
we had
dog
too.
yep.
dual registered.
And I
Yeah.
wouldn't, if I had a litter of puppies out of two dogs that I open registered AKC, I would never be able to get papers on them,
Hmm.
AKC papers. So
Yeah, and
that
you know
that
what,
answers my question.
we're happy to have you guys from Iowa come over. We're
Well, I think we might try that. We've got a young dog, and I haven't been involved in it for a while, so it might be I just wish you weren't quite as far over there. You know, if you had something a little closer to Iowa,
Well,
that'd be
if it
perfect. But
so I'm also our hunt test secretary. I became hunt test secretary like 15 years ago because I was out there planting birds, and a few of them got up and flew away. And the then president of the club was like, you
well, they're
lose two or
expensive.
three birds is okay, but you start losing five, and then next thing I know, I'm secretary because they couldn't afford to keep me in the field anymore. So remember that lesson. If you're really a poor bird planner, you may become secretary.
Get an office
Uh,
job.
So I worked with a pro trainer for labs. He
mhm.
didn't do the hunt tests, but he did the field trials. So I was a full-time bird boy,
Yep.
and if I didn't throw them in the right spot or I didn't shoot them when they were out of the launcher, I got in trouble. I got yelled at a lot,
Yep.
and all the scent. If you let a bird go and it just walks around in the grass instead of flying. Um, there's a lot of scent out there, and
I
so I
per,
completely understand
yeah,
where you're
no, no.
coming from.
Personally, usually we're fortunate in that I think I shared this story where the some of these clubs are lucky to get 6 people
Hmm.
to help out. We usually get I could get 20 to 25 members helping out. I mean, I have shifts of bird planners, and we have fun with it. I come up with names. We call them avian placement specialist. We'll have marshals; those are handler wranglers, and we have fun with it. We have a dinner on Saturday night for the handlers, the volunteers, and everybody, and that just helps make a weekend out of it. And it, but again, we're fortunate that we have about 100 households in our club, and we accept anybody. And we have Vishlas in our club. We have some Britneys. We have some. I don't know if we have setters, but they've unfortunately he's had some health issues. But we actually have a lab owner in our club, and it's mostly for our training. We do about 6 to 8 training sessions over the summer. But so getting back to the hunting test, so if the junior level is I'll tell people, especially in Chicago, people will get a short hair as a pet. Vizslas are incredibly popular in the city right now because I don't know if it's true, but some breeders promote them as hypoallergenic. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but they're beautiful dogs. They tend to be a little bit calmer than short hairs, and the people will come out, and I'm like, you got a bird dog. You made the decision to get a hunting dog, a bird dog. The dog doesn't really care if you shoot birds for it, in my opinion. But you owe it to that dog to be able to get it out in the field and let it hunt. And
Hmm.
that's what's going to keep that dog normal. I mean, my two are sitting here sleeping, right? I mean, they've been sleeping all night. They'll do a little bit of wrestling and then they're sleeping again. I get them out in the field pretty much every day. And that's where our training sessions come in. So with the hunting test, it's a way to encourage people to maybe take their dog that they just got as a pet and try a hunting test. And that's how I got hooked. I mean, we got our dog as a pet. I I had no interest at all in hunting or anything like that. And the dog just drew me, just
Hook, line,
hook,
and
line, and
sinker.
sinker,
That happens.
just sucked me into it. Um,
So, I've been doing field trials my whole life. I started with the coon hunting and squirrel dogs. So, um, I've done trials all over the country, and that it's not as mainstream. It's just a guy and his hunting dog. Couple guys go out on a hunt and they get 2 hours and they get scored accordingly by time and number of game found. And then when I kind of transitioned into the labs with this pro trainer, we were going to a lot of field trials, and I noticed there that it was really mainstream, and the trainers make a business out of it.
yeah,
You pull into a big trial, there's 50, 60 trucks with You know, at one time, you know, we had 12 dogs on the truck, and there was trucks that could hold 36 to
Mhm.
45 dogs with a chaser truck. Is are the AKC, and I've been to a couple hunt tests as the AKC just for the labs, but is it staying that way? Is it getting bigger as far as, you know, customers just, hey, here's my dog, train it, take it to trials. I'll come get it for hunting season and bring it back to you in the spring. Is that
Not not
relevant
that
with the
I'm aware
pointing
of.
too?
No, not that I'm aware of, especially in the Midwest. So I will run my dogs, or I have run my dogs in Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana, and there might be one or two pros. Sometimes, like Steve Reese used to bring in six, 7 dogs. That's getting less common now. It is mostly amateur handlers. But you bring up a tremendous point. The difference between field trials and hunt test, and it's probably similar in the lab world. Field trials, you got a lot of pros, big running dogs. And I'm not going to get into the debate as to whether or not you could hunt with a field trial short hair or pointer or setter. It's just a different dog. It's, you know, they want that dog several hundred yards out, similar to your dogs that are doing retrieves, doing, you know, marked retrieves from 150, 180 yards
Hmm.
out. That's a whole other level.
Yeah.
Hunt tests, these are hunting dogs.
Yeah. They're just
These
ability.
are foot hunting dogs. These are the dogs that you're going to take to the club, that you're going to take to CRP, and you know, we're getting more and more dogs. They do allow tracking collars, but you can't turn it on if you. But you know, we're getting more dogs that come to the line with tracking collars. But honestly, for a hunting test, your dog should not be out of sight. And that is not what this is about.
Hmm.
It is a foot hunting um, test, and it's not a competition. It is a test to see if you meet a standard. And so why do it? So for example, everybody is a great dog. I've never met anyone who doesn't have the greatest dog in the world. And I'll help out with, you know, youth hunts, or they might call me at the state park, the Des Plaines State Fish and Wildlife Area, where we hold our tests. They have a, I think you guys call it a put and take pheasant season there, where they put pheasant out each afternoon, and I'll get calls sometimes. Somebody is interested in someone guiding for them or something. Well, if you tell me you have a great dog, that doesn't help. But if you tell me your dog has a senior hunter title, now I know that that dog is going to hold point. I know that that dog is going to wait for the shot. So when you have some kids, you don't have a dog running under the bird while the kids are trying to shoot at it. I know that that dog is going to recover that pheasant or quail or whatever and bring it back. So I'm always encouraging our members, and especially through our training program, I'm encouraging them to train for and test for their senior title. Um, Pretty much anyone should be able to get a junior title. Senior title is a big deal. That is a real commitment of training. You know, how many dogs are steady to shot? You know, I mean, most guys don't have a dog that's steady, especially with pheasants, don't have a dog that's steady to shot when and they don't need that for hunting. You know, most hunting dogs are somewhere between junior and senior. So, so just to finish up the levels, a master dog is. It's funny. One of the guys when I started, he used to describe it as a senior hunter is a great hunting dog. A master hunter is an overtrained hunting dog. So this is a dog that is steady to wing, shot, and fall. It has to demonstrate absolute steadiness and then be sent by the handler. It has to retrieve to hand. It has to handle with a minimum, which is debatable. What one person's minimum of talking is not the other person's minimum of talking, but with a minimum of handling. It has to show intelligence in seeking objectives, even though it's an an artificial uh, field, an artificial setup, and it has to honor on its own. So if it comes across that other dog on point, it has to stop on its own without any uh, commands from the handler, and it has to stand there through the flush, shot, and retrieve without being handled by that handler. So
That's
a
the
lot of
hard
times
part.
yep,
That's the hard part right
Yep.
there,
yep,
is getting that dog to stay there and not move while that other dog is out there searching for a bird. And as you know, what you hope is a quick shot, bird falls, right in an obvious place for the other dog to retrieve it, so that your dog doesn't have to stay there very long.
right.
But when you get the one where the bird falls in heavy cover and the dog is searching and searching and searching, and meantime, your guy is supposed to be honoring and not moving, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, find that bird, please find
Right.
that bird quickly, But it's just
And
part
and
of
the,
it. That's just
it,
part of it.
and that's up to the judges. It's like
Yeah.
um, what I've noticed is so I've been running my own dogs and hunting tests for like 15 years now. And what I've noticed is it's not that the judges have become easier, but they become more reasonable. They're not expecting machines. And you have the ability, if that dog is having trouble finding that bird for the retrieve, and especially if your dog has not found the bird yet, the judges will tell you, hey, you know what, you're good. You've stood there through the shot. That's the hard part. You need to find a bird, go move on and find that bird. Or even if you have a bird already, most judges at some point will tell you to go ahead and move on. They're not I the last few years in particular. Um, the difference, getting back to the field trials, is there. I believe I used to gun for a friend of mine. I would gun for their field trials, and I mean these labs. These are not normal labs. These are not your labs down the street. These are like thoroughbreds, and mostly pro handlers, mostly amateur handlers in hunting tests, pointing dog hunting tests, pointing dog field trials. There's more walking field trials now, but most of them are still horseback. And again, you could argue, you could debate it all day long. Can you hunt with that dog? I know people who do hunt with their field trial short hairs, but they've got a Garmin and they're looking at that GPS more than they're looking out in the field because they don't know where that dog is. They need that. Just that's not my style. That's not what I like being able to see my dog.
I mean, I'm the same way.
So to get into it, we're again, because we have a large and active club. Every year, in conjunction with the Vizsla Club, we'll hold a mock hunt test, a practice hunt test. So this is a way for the handlers to come out and give it a try. We allow them to use training collars, check cords. Like, I'll really encourage the new junior dogs, the handlers, to keep a check cord on, because I'll explain to them, like, and we'll cut it short because it's usually in July. And I'll just say, it's like, look, you're going to be out there 15 minutes. You could spend 15 minutes trying to call your dog back in the field, or you could spend 15 minutes working him into a bird and work. So sometimes they listen to me, sometimes they don't. But we do that mock hunt test, and we'll have coaches out there for the new handlers. We'll have an experienced handler walk with them and try and explain what's going on, and there's it's probably a whole other podcast on handling tips and things like that. I mean, that's way
Yeah.
too detailed, but it it also gives you something to do with your dog all year round. We're training all summer. It's tough. It's tough when it's 85 degrees outside, but we're training, we're working, and it doesn't have to necessarily be. It could just be some retrieving drills, could be some steadiness drills, but I just a a great hunting dog is not necessarily a great hunt test dog, but a great hunt test dog is definitely a great hunting dog. I mean, you have a senior or a master title, that dog is under control. That dog is holding point and allowing you to walk in and flush that bird, and that dog is bringing that bird back. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Now, I'm sure that, you mentioned kind of, since as a handler, you kind of knew the gimmicks, if you will. There's always
Right.
trying to, everybody's trying to, get a leg up and get an advantage if they can. And I'm familiar with the bird field stall or whatever you want to. My kid, one of my sons was a wrestler, and I always equated that to, hey, you've got the match won. You just need to stay off your back. So just
Yep.
stall on the mat, and, not to the point where you get penalized. But I always kind of equated that to, okay, I'm going to take my dog over in that area of the bird field because I think it's really been hit hard and there's probably no birds left over there. So he probably won't get in trouble over there because if he finds another bird, we got to work it again, like we did before. But that's when the judge always kind of, makes eye contact and goes, come on, come
Right.
on, Wade,
Right.
come on,
And
Wade.
that is up to us. And again, that's why I believe the judging has made me a better handler, because we have a gentleman who wrote the book. He started training with a pro who wrote the book on playing games, and then he added a few more chapters, and he will find his bird and then just work that, and it's our mistake as judges. We let him get away with it, and we really shouldn't. We really need to start telling him, uh and he's just passing, he's getting sevens, and it's like, that's not what I want. I want to finish up where the judges say, hey, that was that was fun. That was
Yeah.
fun watching your dog. And fortunately, getting dogs from Top Gun, these are nice dogs. I've got a lot. They came with all the tools, so it was just up to me to put the tools together. But the dogs came with it, and I just, once when I started judging, it's like, you know what? I'm not gonna. I'm not, I'm gonna try not to play those games, and you know, uh, they say,
Well,
and
I
I'll
think
tell
I
that.
think I think the dog deserves better, in
Yep.
a sense
Yeah,
that the dog deserves to be able to be put in a position where it shows what it can do. It shows its skills. And if you're
right.
playing those games, then you're really taking it away from your dog to show those skills in some
Right. Well,
respects.
mine won't listen anyways. He
Oh
knows.
yeah, yeah.
Well, we always
You,
called that a slick
well,
handler.
and I'll be, and the honest truth is that every time I had a problem in a hunt test, I either got disqualified for a mistake or whatever, it was mostly my fault as a
Yeah.
handler. I had made a mistake. I either didn't read my dog right, or I wasn't communicating right. I wasn't really getting him in a position that he needed to be in to be successful. So it was my fault,
Yep.
never the dogs. And so, but
And
yeah,
I,
it's a great opportunity. I think, like you said, people can get hooked on that entry level, and you hope they do because that's the lifeblood of keeping hunt tests going for all of us. And
Right.
I'm glad you guys keep doing it over there and give us it's a little bit of a ways for us to go, but at least we have some place
yeah.
that we can go when we need to, and that's
We
outstanding.
had, um, we had, so we've had these trainings, and I've been in, organizing our training sessions for 16 years now. The last 5 years or so, we really got it down. We do. I will. I am very proud to admit we do a great job with our training sessions. We're consistent. We follow the Huntsmith method, so there's consistency there. So this spring, we had our first dog that started out with our training sessions that got his master hunter title. It was a Vizsla, but it was
Very
he
cool.
did it with through our training program, and I couldn't be prouder. I mean, I just could not be prouder of the handler. They lived in the fourth floor condo in Chicago,
Wow.
and she took that dog juniors, seniors,
No
and
kidding.
got his master
How
title.
long did it take them to do that?
Not as long as it took me with my first.
Well,
And
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, you always make. I'm the guy that keeps hunt clubs alive because I have to pay all those extra entry fees to get my 6 passes or my 5 passes or whatever it is.
right.
But
And it was a little tough because she and I started both of our dogs started running in masters last fall, and I went 0 for the fall, and she got about 3 or 4 passes, and it really took quite a bit of soul searching for me not to be a baby about it. I was really I was really struggling with it there, uh, but I got over it. So
well,
this
here's what I hope. I know you guys have a test coming up. Can you
yep,
as
September
to
10th and 11th.
yeah to wrap up? We'll just talk about that a little bit. Give you a plug
Sure.
there. That's the 10th and the 11th of
Yep,
September.
of September.
Okay.
And you could find it on you could find the premium on our website, gspci.org. I would absolutely encourage everyone to register their dog with Bird Dog Stakes, birddogsteaks.com. It doesn't cost you anything. What you do is you go online, you register your dog, and it has all your information. So they also have a great search engine for finding a test. The AKC's website is good to find a test, but the Bird Dog Stakes is just a better search engine, and then it will link you to the AKC website. So you want to find a test in September in Wisconsin, you could put that in the search bar. It will list the test. And then if you want to find out more information about that test, it'll take you to the AKC website. So, it will also print out your entry form. It'll have all your dog's information plus the test information. That is a godsend because trying to read people's handwriting when they send their entries in is next to impossible. Finally, some of the clubs will register. So we're registered with Bird Dog Stakes so people can actually enter online. So instead of mailing an entry to me, they can it goes through PayPal, and then there's I don't know, a little bit of a fee for Bird Dog Stakes, but you will get a confirmation immediately that you're in the test. The secretary gets an email immediately that your dog is entered. What drives us nuts, and unfortunately we don't have time to get into it, like what goes into putting a test together as secretaries, what drives you nuts is the entries are closing. Usually they'll close on Wednesday. We're starting to close them earlier, but let's say it's closing on Wednesday and the test is Saturday. Sunday night, I'm getting phone calls. Do you still have openings? As of this minute, yes. Okay, well, I'm going to mail. Well, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You go online with Bird Dog Stakes, you're entered, and you
Mhm.
get that confirmation right
I think
there.
I
So I'm
did
a
that. Did
huge
that and just
fan.
get a
sounds like
10% discount at Motel 6 through them too, I believe. I had a card and everything for it.
Perry, it's been a delight.
Yeah.
And
Thank
we
you guys.
appreciate you
It's
taking the time. And we hope
absolutely
that somebody out there takes this information and gets their dog and gets involved in AKC Hunt Tests because it's a great way to learn a
yeah.
lot
And they
about
could reach me
training.
on the website. My name is an email address is all over the website. So
Perfect.
they're welcome to reach out to me.
We'll plan on seeing you over there in one of these tests in the near future.
We'll hold a special parking spot for you Iowa boys. We'll
There
find
you
Well,
some
there
go.
you go.
we'll
Appreciate
find
it.
some cord for you.
Do have to say, before we close, I see you added a sticker to your fridge. But
Yep, I had to
it's
put the
it's
Bears
painful
decal
to
up there.
say it, but go Vikings.
That's quite
Perry,
all right.
thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Thank you,
evening.
guys. I appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.